What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So today's video is going to be an editing photos plus a Q&A. I had posted a few days ago on my Instagram asking for you guys to submit any questions you had regarding automotive photography. We got quite a few responses, and I think I have some pretty valuable input that maybe will be worth something to you guys. So if you want to stick around, you're going to find out some really useful information, everything from camera gear, tips and tricks, an assortment of things. And also you'll get to learn a little bit more about my background and why I chose to be an automotive photographer, among many other things. So yeah, guys. If you enjoy this style of content, please be sure to drop a like. It helps the channel out a lot. That is the best way to support the channel, is just drop a like and leave a comment if you have the time to do so. The more likes we get, the wider audience that these videos reach. And then with that being said, the larger the channel gets, the cooler the stuff I get to do and show you guys. So nonetheless, appreciate all you. Really means the world to me. We're at 640 at the time of filming this, which is crazy. Again, if we can hit 750 before 2022, I'm gonna do some sort of giveaway. It's gonna be a gift card. It's gonna be, I don't know how I'm gonna do it, but I'm gonna come up with something because you guys have been absolutely crushing it. But nonetheless, love you guys. We're gonna hop right into this video. All right, guys, we're gonna hop into the first question right off the rip. Before actually doing that, these are photos I took of my Cobra probably a couple weeks ago, and it was real nice out. So I'm just gonna be going through and editing these. But nonetheless, I think the context of what I'm talking about is far more important than the photos. So without further ado, let's hop into the first question. This is by Carphotography on Instagram. What is your top 3 dream car photo shoot and where? So top 3 cars in terms of like that'd be my dream to photo shoot. Oh man, that's a tough one. Love Koenigsegg's, like anything that is extremely like non-tangible. So anything crazy. So I'd say like a Koenigsegg, a Bugatti, like a Pagani, something along those lines. In terms of locations, like where, honestly, anywhere probably on the West Coast. Just because I think with the West Coast, you have a beautiful mixture of like mountains and yet you still have water. Whereas here in like Northern Illinois, there's really not all that much going on. You don't have a lot to work with. It's really like kind of cornfields and just real open and whatnot. So definitely shooting that style car in an area that is just very different from where I'm at. So hopefully that kind of answers that question. I know it's a little broad of a statement, but it's hard to like actually identify 3 specific cars. But anything that is super over the top, that has a ton of like really cool details, like the Pagani interior, just the Pagani in general is like a work of art. So some cars like that, and then that location. Next question is by JD Customs. What inspired you to start automotive photography? So funny enough, I've thought about making this a full video on its own, but I'll kind of dumb it down here to save time. Becoming an automotive photographer was kind of a fluke. So what had happened is I had a small detailing business, whereas I feel like most people start off with doing a small detailing business. And I really enjoyed working on cars in that respect, but I was never mechanically inclined. So after doing that for about a year and not really growing all that much, I realized that it wasn't for me, but I still wanted to find something that was in the automotive field but didn't require like a mechanical side of things, because I am not mechanically inclined in the slightest. So I forgot where I saw, but I saw something online about like an automotive photographer. I think it was probably on Instagram or Facebook at that time, because this was quite a ways back. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. And I had ordered a Sony, or no, I'm sorry, not a Sony, a Samsung. I believe it was the NX200, which most of you guys have probably never heard of that before. It was a small mirrorless camera. It was a couple $100. I figured, you know what, I'm going to try it out. So without knowing much about cameras, I ordered that on Amazon. It came in, and the following weekend was a 4th of July car show. So I went to that, and I took a few pictures, not really knowing much. If I can find the photos, I'll put them up here on the screen. And took pictures, put them up on Facebook, and a few of the owners had mentioned that they really enjoyed them. And they asked like how much they owe me, and I was like, you guys, well, you don't owe me anything. I'm just taking pictures for fun. And it was kind of at that moment that I realized, wow, like I can actually make money just taking pictures. And then really from that moment on, it just spiraled and snowballed into now what it is today, where I've had, you know, the fortune of being able to go all over the country and take photos of people's private collections. And it's been a wonderful experience. Now, that's not to say that being an automotive photographer is the greatest thing in the world, because it definitely has some setbacks, especially living in Northern Illinois when half the year cars are down. But that's kind of how it snowballed. I mean, there's more that kind of goes into it, and I could go into further depth in another video. But yeah, that's kind of how I started and became an automotive photographer. So F80 Isaac, shout out to you, my boy Isaac. He asked the same question, what got you into photography? So yeah, same thing like I just kind of expressed. It was more of a fluke than anything. I had no clue it would turn into what it is today, and I'm very grateful that you know, I spent that couple $100 because at that time, a couple $100 honestly might have been a little tough to like a pill to swallow. That's kind of a lot of money like back then. Don't get me wrong, still a couple $100 is a couple $100. But yeah, I'm glad I took that risk and I got to meet so many wonderful people. I mean, I could genuinely say automotive photography has changed my life. So it's something I'll always have a strong passion for, and hopefully as time goes on, I can, you know, find a job or find a place of work and really do this full time and make a very decent living doing so. So fingers crossed, we will see. Another one by Car Photography. What are your goals for automotive photography? So now this is going to kind of sound silly because my goals that I had set were a couple of years ago. So the biggest one for me was always hitting like 10,000 subscribers. I'm sorry, not subscribers. My biggest goal was always to hit 10,000 followers. The reason being is because then you could share a link. And I know that probably sounds silly to some people, but for me, like I always thought when you hit 10,000, like you were somebody, like you had proven like you did like a good job, like you excel at whatever you're doing. So it was one of those things where that was always my goal, and I hit that a little over 2 years ago. And then since then, honestly, I kind of like gave up. I realized quickly how insignificant followers matter. I can't preach that enough. The biggest regret I have, even though this wasn't part of the question, but I think it's very important for you guys to hear, is that do not photograph cars strictly for social media, like the style you shoot them. For example, don't always take portrait style shots. Like take them in landscape if it looks better. Who cares if it's not going to get as much of a reach on Instagram? Take the shot that's going to look the best for your portfolio. I cannot express that enough, guys. That's the biggest mistake I made for years, strictly shooting in only portrait, and I missed out on some really cool shots that would have been very beneficial for my portfolio. So there's a small takeaway on that one. Another goal I had was to be able to travel, and I've had the fortune to do that. I should say I've been fortunate enough to do that. I've been able to go to Tennessee. I've been able to go to Colorado multiple times. Tennessee, I've been there like 4 or 5 times. California, where else? I haven't really been out to the East Coast yet, so that's something that eventually I would like to do because I think that would be cool. But those are 2 of the biggest goals, was to hit 10,000 and then obviously to like make money off of doing it. So believe it or not, my rates are extremely cheap compared to a lot of people, but I don't think a lot of people understand how, I don't even want to say competitive because it's not even competitive here in Illinois. Like I mean that in like the kindest way possible. Like there's very talented photographers, but there's such an oversaturation that it's very difficult for people to want to pay more than, let's say, like $50 because there's so many people at that price point. So for me personally, I've kind of taken a step back from doing it. I've just been really focusing on my own car and honestly really focusing on this channel because there's no pettiness, there's no real competition in that respect. Like you get what you put in and no one else can like derail it. So yeah, small side tangent on that one, but hopefully that answered your question, my dude. My boy Ilya, bagged_grape. Any specific brand of lenses you stick to and why? So this is a great question because a lot of people tend to stick with like the Sony native lenses. I am a huge fan of the Rokinon and Samyang lenses. I think they are wonderful. Granted, some of them are hit or miss, so it's kind of luck of the draw. I always purchase my stuff from Amazon because I have that return policy, especially with having Prime. I think it's like 30 days, might even be longer. So out of the box, if I get something that's defective, I can send it right back. I have had 1 or 2 lenses that were defective, but after getting the second copies, they were absolutely flawless. For example, my 35 is a Samyang and my 85 is a Rokinon, and they are truly wonderful. Another outstanding brand that I stand behind is Sigma. I do not think you could go wrong with Sigma. In terms of like really what is quote unquote the best, I think my Sigma has the best image quality of any lenses that I've used, whether it be native, Sigma, Samyang, or Rokinon. The Rokinon, the 85 1.4 is just slightly behind it. I mean, we're like nitpicking pixels at that point. They're both incredibly sharp. You can't go wrong either way. In terms of like brands I wouldn't recommend is like, I think it's like Yungyo or something. It's a really weird name, but any of the brands, like if it seems like a deal that's too good to be true, like a 50, a 1.4 for $200 and it's some like weird Chinese brand, I would not opt for that. But safe bet is Sigma and the safe bet is Samyang and Rokinon with knowing that there may be an issue, it might be defective out of the box, but you could always return it and get a proper one. Next up, we have Rev Matcher Media. Should I just keep creating content even if I'm not getting the amount of reach engagement I want? Wow. So I'm going to do a full video on this topic because man, oh man, does this hit home. The answer is not as simple as you would think. So my question to you is why are you posting content? Are you posting content because you want to get followers, you want recognition, you want a lot of eyes on your content? Or are you posting it because it's something you enjoy, and if it reaches a larger audience, that's just a plus? So I was in a similar boat, and I'm not saying, obviously, I don't know you personally, so I can't, I don't know your viewpoint or how you stand on it, but I have been on both sides of that fence, whereas in the beginning, all I cared about was followers, likes, my posts reaching 1 million people, especially when my account hit its peak when I was reaching over 100,000 people per post. Like, my account blew up. I went from 5,000 to 10,000 in just a couple months, and it was insane. And then now Instagram is tailored strictly pretty much to Reels. So if you're trying to grow just as an automotive photographer without any Reels, it's pretty tricky. And in my opinion, really not even worth it. But I think Instagram, even though a lot of people would argue it's not a portfolio, because it's not, but it is also a good way to kind of show a larger audience your portfolio, because a lot of people do not take the time to go to websites as much as you would think. They'd rather just glance at someone's Instagram, and you know, if you have 100 photos up there, it takes what, a minute or two to go through all those, whereas if someone has to key in your website, and then depending on how you have it set up, it could be a whole different process. So if you are just in it for the likes and followers, which again, I'm not saying you are, just being theoretical here, if that is your objective, then yes, I would say stop creating content because it's not worth it on Instagram. Unless you want to start custom tailoring stuff to being Reels, then by all means do it, because you'll have a much higher success rate in growing. If you're doing this because you're extremely passionate about it and you just want people to see your content and you don't care about how many likes or views, then yes, then no, do not quit and continue to do so. But I'm gonna make a full video on that because I think that's a very popular topic in today's social media world. Next up, we have FVCK Dan. I'm sure you guys know what that means. If you could pick any one lens and camera to shoot with, what would it be? So I have been a Sony fanboy for a while. So I had the Samsung NX300. Then I went to the Sony a6000. Then I went to the Sony a7R II, which I still own. And then also my latest body is the Sony a7R III. I adore both of them, and personally I think the ergonomics on the R3 is just a little bit better, and also the frame rate's a little bit better. It has 10 frames per second versus 5 frames per second regarding the burst, so that helps a lot with rollers. So I would have to say I would stick with my R3, and if I had one lens, it would probably have to be like a 28 to 70 f2.8, even though I do not own that lens. Just because that is so versatile. I can do rollers, I can do detail shots, I can do a whole bunch of stuff. If it's a lens that I currently own, it would have to probably be my, man, that's such a tough one. I almost want to say my 35 1.4 because that could also be used for rollers and detail shots and whatnot. But my Sigma is my favorite, the 50 1.4, just because it's my sharpest lens and the rendition it gives is just beautiful. So yeah, that hopefully kind of answers that. I know that was broad. If it was, so stuff that I own, it would be R3, Sigma 50 1.4. If it was gear that I do not own, it would be A7R3, and it would be probably the Sigma or G Master, the 24 to 70 f2.8. Gavin, what got you into photography? Okay, so I kind of answered that. So yeah, guys, I'm gonna wrap this one up here just because I don't want to drag this out too long. Sorry, I spent a lot of time kind of just looking at the phone. I haven't been editing as much as I would like, but hopefully that gave you guys some insight, some information, because I know a lot of people are maybe in a creative rut right now. Being winter, it's kind of difficult, at least here in the Midwest, to get out and get photos, and it can be slightly discouraging if you're not seeing the growth that you want on Instagram. But yeah, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please be sure to smash smash that like button. It helps the channel out a ton, as I said earlier. But nonetheless, I hope you guys all have a wonderful day. I will catch you in Friday's upload. If you made it this far, little hint here, I have a pretty neat package that is arriving here within the next couple of hours, and it's something I plan on using a lot for the channel in the near future, and I think it's going to take the content creation to another level. So stoked on that. But nonetheless, love you guys, and I'll catch you in the next upload.